Let's bring in former Interior Secretary, Montana Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke. Congressman, welcome.
Great to be with you.
So what are your expectations in terms of what Congress can do in the first 100 days of the new Trump administration to get the agenda rolling?
Well, he's going to need a team in place. When I was secretary, I had 17 Senate confirmed positions, and in 2 years, I only had 7 of the 17. And the secretaries are really the executioners of the president's policy. You see strong picks in energy, because he said he'd make us energy independent again, energy dominant in some, secure the border. You see Holman and Chrissy Noem, fine picks. And there are other controversial picks that he's going to have to go through. And when they say a recess, appointment, those are tougher than I think most people think. True, both houses, both the House and the Senate have to be in recess, but there's also a 51% vote in the Senate, and amendments are allowed. So on the Senate side, the Senate will go through a series of amendments with that. Each party will get them, and the outcome is uncertain. But the president is doing exactly what he said he would do. He said promise made is a promise kept. He said he'd secure the border. He said he'd make us energy independent, and he said he would bring transparency and accountability to the Department of Justice. His picks seem to reflect that.
Let's show our audience some of the faces that President Trump has announced in terms of who he wants to be joining in his cabinet. You see a wide range of folks there, some familiar faces, some people you have served with, Congressman. What do you think about the process ahead?
Well, I've served with many. I can tell you he's got some great picks. My personal favorite, if there is a favorite among them, is Governor Burgum from North Dakota. Mm-hmm. He's innovative, he understands energy, and he understands the importance of being energy dominant, not only in our fossil fuels, but also in our critical minerals that power this nation. Other picks, some are more controversial than others. Obviously, Gates at the top of the news. Well, I know Matt Gaetz very well, and he is a disruptor. There's no doubt, and I think President looks at Department of Justice as needing, a reset. Gates is certainly that guy. But you look at across the board, what he's chosen is talent. Not mediocre talent, but they are, in many cases, the best in their industry. Certainly Chris Wright, you look at how innovative he is. So I'm impressed with the picks. Look, this is going to be a mandate to see if President Trump can push them through. I think he'll get some in recess. I'm not sure he's going to get them all, but certainly he should have the favor of most of the Senate to make sure that he can execute his agenda, which, again, it was a mandate for the American people.
You made reference to Matt Gaetz. House Speaker Mike Johnson talked about that nomination today. Let's play it.
And he knows everything about how the Department of Justice has been weaponized and misused, and he will be a reformer. And I think that's why the establishment in Washington is so shaken up about this pick.
Gaetz gets through or he doesn't, the Attorney General eventually will be somebody who really wants to change the place, correct?
Yeah, and sometimes in a military sense, you know you're over the target when you're getting flack. And when some members within the Department of Justice now are visiting their lawyers, one has to ask why. But I think exactly right. Gaetz is that disruptor. And, I, on the campaign trail, I've asked, look, is there any department of the government, division, agency that you have full trust and confidence in? And when we hear crickets, we got to change that and bring transparency and accountability back to government. And I tell you, sometimes in the Department of Justice, you need a disruptor to begin that process.
Congressman Ryan Zinke, great having you today. We will follow it all. Thanks so much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.